Facebook and Instagram. This is Avani from Hedgecraft Heirlooms, and I am here today. We're going to be talking about color magic. If you're here watching on the replay, because anybody who's here this early is, please throw a hashtag replay into the comments. It will help other people find this video in the future so they can watch and enjoy it also. Alright, let's see. I'm going to open up a second window on my other device down here because I've got Instagram up here, Facebook down here, and I just want to open up my own video so that I can see all your comments, because sometimes it doesn't show it to me otherwise. Come on, I just had it. I scrolled a little too far. There we go. Open up. Magic. If you're here watching on the replay, beautiful. Alright. Now that I'm here, I have a little bit of a pre-show planned. I like to do these little pre-shows just because it takes time for the algorithm to work to help people find us. So this is what we do in the meantime so that nobody gets too bored and walks out on me, because we have lots of great stuff planned, so hang out. We're going to get to the good stuff, I promise. For now, let's give this a little bit of a review of what I've been talking about on social media this week. You know, I posted at the beginning of the week that I think it was 2 weeks ago yesterday, my 1-year-old son spilled a glass of water onto my tablet, and it stopped charging. And so I had to send it in for repairs, which means I lost a lot of my files, a lot of my business organization stuff, and I lost a lot. And all my artwork that was in digital files on my device. So it was really nerve-wracking, and it kind of happened right at the same exact time I had all this really crazy stuff happening in my personal life and some big shifts happening, and it felt way too poignant to be a coincidence. So I decided, in lieu of knowing what I was supposed to or originally planning to do this week, the theme this week has been on the void of the year and death and transformation. So this period of time here that we're in right now, but after Samhain and before Yule, is called the void of the year. Reason being that it is the darkest part of the year, the days are the shortest, the nights are the longest. In the mythology of Wicca specifically, which a lot of neo-pagans kind of loosely follow in a way, Samhain is the time where the god of grain dies, and then he descends into the underworld. So during this period from Samhain to Yule, the god is in the underworld and he is experiencing death. And then at Yule, he is reborn again as the infant sun-child. Which, if that sounds oddly familiar to you, you're not crazy, I promise. There's definitely a lot of these mythological parallels that you find the more you read into these things. Hey, Pink Sage Essential is going to be talking about color magic today, talking about the color brown. Right now I'm just giving a little bit of a preview of all the things I've been talking about on social media this week. Because you're here, if you could do me a favor, throw a hashtag live into the comments, that'd be great. It helps other people find us with the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. So I was just talking about the void of the year, what that is, the period between Samhain and Yule, and why it's there. Because this is the time when the god has descended into the underworld, this is, you know, he is literally experiencing death. So in that sort of way, we're also experiencing death. And again, if you're here live on Facebook, because I see there's one person watching, throw a hashtag live so I can see you, because Facebook just shows me that you're here and not what your name is, and I would like to say hi. And as a quick reminder for the folks that are here, this is supposed to be an interactive experience, so if you have questions or comments, definitely throw them out there. I definitely want to hear from you. So yes, so the time of death, metaphorical death, obviously, you know, we don't want to be literally dying, but, you know, death in the spiritual sense. You know, and I think what's interesting is we think about Samhain specifically as the point of, oh, hey Devin, glad you're here. Thank you for commenting. So, hi Pink Sage. Hi Devin. Glad that you're here. So Samhain, we associate it a lot with death, but the truth is that while Samhain actually represents the point, the moment of death, but the experience of death, of actually being in the underworld, that's the time of the year that we're in right now. So it is the experience of being dead, of being nothing, so to speak. So there are a few different things that we can do to sort of align with that energy, you know, because everything that we do as witches, and we celebrate the Sabbats and the Wheel of the Year and the full moon and the new moon, is all about sort of aligning our spiritual journey with what is happening on the macrocosmic scale, or, you know, the celestial scale. And this time of year is no different. So even though it doesn't necessarily have its own holiday per se. It's sort of like the period of time between two holidays, but there are still things that we can do to sort of align with that energy, and work with it as best as possible. So the first thing to do is self-care. We talk about the idea of being dead. What do you do when you're dead? You do nothing. So this is a great time for nothing. So doing things like catching up on your reading, or snuggling up on the couch with a blanket and just relaxing. And I know that's super hard to do this time of year because it's the holiday season and shopping and Christmas decorating and family gatherings if you're doing that this year. So that's a lot to handle. And I think it's unfortunate that our culture is set up in a way that it doesn't really allow us to have that experience of nothing in this time of year because it is so spiritually valuable. Hey Cosmo Yuri, we're going to be talking about the color magic of the color brown. I'm just talking in my pre-show here about the void of the year and the ways that we can sort of align with the things that are happening cosmically this time of year. Hey Crystal Magic Moon, we're here talking about the color of the magic brown. Wow, the magic of the color brown. But I'm doing a little bit of a pre-show now while we wait for folks to show up. I'm almost through this. Ways to align with the void of the year, this time period that we're going through right now between Samhain and Yule. So self-care. The second thing was connect to your higher self, because when we're experiencing that sort of metaphorical death, we've boiled ourselves down to our essence. Symbolically, at least have no body to worry about. It's all about being a sort of spiritual, energetic being. So it makes it easier for us to connect to that because we're literally closer to death, and being the darkest time of the year, shortest day, longest nights, etc., etc. So ways that you can do that include meditating. Right? If meditating isn't your thing, just remember that meditating doesn't necessarily mean sitting down in the lotus position, thinking of nothing. Meditating can be cooking. It can be doing artwork. It can be doing reading. It can be doing lots of different things. So don't feel limited by the word meditation. Sometimes it trips people up. Or you can try divination. Obviously, people talk about Samhain as the time to do divination because the veil is thin, but the veil is still thin. You can still tap into that absolutely between now and the solstice, particularly, in my opinion. Your mileage may vary, but that's what I find personally. If you've had a different experience, let me know. On the contrary, of course, if you find that the same is true and that you're still kind of getting those weird visions out the side of your periphery at this time of year, just like you get in your Samhain, because I know that's my experience too, let me know. I'd love to know that you guys, if your experience matches. Devin here says that his meditation is driving. That's a great example that I totally flew out of my brain. But sort of think about the idea like if you drive to work every day, you drive the same route and you get used to it. And there'll be days where you might hop in the car and suddenly find yourself at work with no memory of how you got there. That is meditating, so that absolutely works too. And then the third thing I have real here is dream about the year ahead. I have very specific views as far as what happens when we die based on books I've read and things that I've learned. But there are some theories, including the ones that I generally subscribe to, that suggest that during our time while we're dead, we're actually reviewing the life that we've lived, reviewing options for what we do the next life, and kind of making decisions on where we're going to go from there. For us as living beings, kind of tapping into those energies, it's really no different. So it's a good time to plan for the year ahead and think about what your goals are going to be, so on and so forth. So that said, that's my quick kind of overview of what I was talking about earlier this week. It was the void of the year. Now let's talk about the color brown. And I chose the color brown because I feel like brown is the perfect color when we're talking about the void of the year. Because brown and the void of the year and November just kind of like all go together, if you ask me. So let's first talk about the history of the color brown because, as I say every time, I love talking about history and mythology and the science of things before we talk about the magic of things, because in my opinion they all kind of blend together, and the more you understand about the more mundane aspects of it, the deeper you can develop an understanding of the magical aspects of a lot of things. So first let's talk about the history of brown. So the etymology of the word brown, so etymology, if you're not familiar with, is like the study of language, the story of the origin of language. I actually don't know the official definition, but that's my understanding of it. But the etymology is actually from an Old English word, Bruin. Think, the hockey team if you're from New England, and a lot of my followers are. And it means any dark or dusty shade. So actually they used it to apply to a lot of colors that weren't necessarily specifically brown, but over time it kind of, evolved into that direction. One of the earliest, it was one of the easiest pigments to create. So a lot of my other Color Magic videos, I talked a lot about how that, while it was made, my friend Megan, who is on Facebook, says, McKenna's eyes are brown, so I'm interested in the color now. Excellent. I'm glad you're interested because I have information for you. I think that my eyes are brown. My hair is brown. Brown is, I love that color. I love like neutral brown makeup. I think my son's eyes are probably going to be brown, which is cool because I've got four kids and none of them have brown eyes right now, so I would like to get one. But I talked a lot in my other videos about how those pigments had been created and how they were turned into paints that were ultimately used in ancient art. And brown is one of the, most of them were very rare. They required, access to specific chemicals or specific minerals. And brown is not like that. Brown is like the most common and easy to create pigment. Because, literally think about it, mud is brown. Like, you could find it anywhere. It turns things brown. Like, duh. But the earliest pigments that were used for painting in particular were actually made with clay. Makes sense, right? And it was a popular shade, especially in the 18th and 19th century. And it was used by painters. That's what my note here says. That there was a specific, hey Stassi Stitch, we're here talking about the color of the wow, I did it again. The magic of the color brown. And I had a really cool note in here that I thought seemed especially pertinent to what we're talking about today with the void of the year, this period between Samhain and Yule. That there was a specific popular shade of brown that was used in the 18th and 19th centuries by painters called momia. I might be mispronouncing that because I've only read it, but momia or a momia. That was actually created using human corpses. Like, how cool and kind of badass is that, right? So, keep that in mind. So, as far as how we make the color brown, because if you're not really into art, you might not know this, but the way that most people make the color brown is by mixing together red or green. Red and green, I should say. So you put those together, they make brown. Another way that people often do it, especially for artists, is that they will mix orange and black together. And I think that is also kind of particularly interesting because orange and black are the colors of Halloween Samhain. And then red and green are the colors often associated with Yule. So brown, it becomes this really interesting in-between point. So it's perfect where we are. Hey Rachel, Rachel's here on Instagram. Again, if you're here watching, throw a hashtag live into the comments. It helps the algorithm reach out and grab more people who are interested in watching. Or a hashtag replay, of course, if people are watching this after the fact. So by the Middle Ages, brown was commonly a color associated with poverty and the lower class because the pigments were so easy to come by. It didn't exactly require a ton of means to be able to acquire it, so it was common, it was easy to make. Pink Sage Essential says, this is amazing, I love this. Great, thank you. Oh, Rachel says, it looks so pretty and brown, I love your hair. Thank you. My hair is an accident, so I'm glad you like it. I'm just kind of like letting it go. But yes, I love brown because I definitely recognize that it is very flattering on me. You can see I got dressed up for you guys today. Devin says, it's an interesting thought that when we think of granite, we think of the physical body, and now that it's made into a color that's literally represented into the ground. Absolutely, and we will absolutely talk more about grounding and the color brown shortly, but that is absolutely a very common association for brown because it's literally the color of earth. Like earth, soil, not earth, like earth, because that's like a big blue marble, but that's neither here nor there. Right, so now we've talked about a little bit of the history and the science, so to speak, and the art of brown. Let's talk a little bit more about brown in the modern day. I only have a couple notes about this, so I won't bend your ear too much on this one. But in the 20th century, brown has become associated with simplicity and health consciousness and eco-friendly, natural living. Think about, I can't, where did I see it? I watched this really ridiculous cartoon. It was, my oldest kid was watching it. It was on Cartoon Network and it's about bears. If you know the name of it, let me know in the comments because I'm blanking on it. We don't get cable regularly, so it was a weird situation that we even saw in the first place. But it was these three bears that lived together, and they had this entire ridiculous but also highly entertaining episode about totes and tote bags. But I bring that up because think about the whole tote bag movement. Like, let's say that you go to a store and there's a wall of tote bags. There's blue ones and green ones and red ones and purple ones, and then there's the beige brown ones. And here's a good example. I was like, I bet I have one right here, just like this, one of these brown bags. And let's say that you look at all of these and you think to yourself, and I know this is me too, like if I look at a whole wall of brown, of bags, and one is brown, my first thought is that, oh, that one's probably more natural, that one's probably less processed, that one's probably healthier for the earth. Somehow, magically, I don't know how we've gotten that association, that's just how insidious, modern day marketing and promoting is, but, that's just an example of how a bag does that. This actual bag does have a design on the back, but I wanted you to see this color. Which is also kind of the same color as my shirt, so more brown. We bears, Devin said down here. So that said, oh wait, I missed one more thing. So kind of interesting story. So leading up to actually doing all the color magic, some of the things that I research regularly is about like which colors are the favorites of people statistically speaking. And brown is, statistically speaking, like the least favorite color, like across the board, which is interesting because I like brown. It's not my favorite, but I definitely like it. If you're curious, blue is number one, generally speaking. Blue I did a good couple months ago. You can find that on YouTube, or in my Instagram, IGTV channel or whatever. I've done a few colors. So if you like color magic, go check it out. There's a bunch there. So I wasn't super excited about doing brown originally because it's so sort of like not that exciting. But when it came around to this week to kind of jump into this unexpected like theme week, I was like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I know what it'll be. It's perfect. So brown is great. And I mentioned it in passing earlier, and I didn't find this anywhere. This is purely my personal association. To me, brown is sort of like the color of November. So I always talk, my husband talks about, maybe I think it was him, he says, Devin says he loved when I did red. Sorry, off topic. Not at all off topic. I'm glad you enjoyed red. If you really liked red, you should go back and watch the others because there's a ton. He's on Facebook, but you can find it on my YouTube channel, which I can find a link for here to make it easier for you to find. Oh, and of course, will this show it to me? So I mentioned at the beginning that I had lost my tablet. So this is my new tablet, so my YouTube channel isn't saved into here. I'll post it into the comments after for you, Devin, in case you can't find it on your own. But if you're on my email list, it's linked from the email that I sent about this particular live stream. And it's linked in a bunch of different places, but you can find it if you need to, but I will also post a link just in case. Anyway, brown. So what's the difference between autumn and fall? So that's the conversation my husband and I had this time. Because I was talking about how I really love early fall when the leaves are orange and it's really pretty and red and yellow and all the different shades and it's just festive and beautiful, and I hate after it's over. Like everything is gray and brown and murky, and it's, the thing that happens before the snow comes, because it gets really, really beautiful, then the leaves fall and it's ugly and it's brown and it's depressing because the cold weather is like right over the right around the corner. I know what I'm saying. So to me, so he was saying that September, October, pretty stuff, that's autumn. But November is fall, because the leaves are literally all fallen off the trees. So right now, brown to me is the color of November, the color of fall. Although I have to admit that this year is I mentioned my son, he's only a year old, or not quite a year old, he's going to be a year old in less than a week. So his birthday's in November now, so now I like November a lot more than I used to. Rachel said the timing is right here on Facebook, but on Instagram my mouth moves at a different time than I'm talking. If you're watching on Instagram and you're having that issue, I apologize deeply, but hopefully it's not too distracting and you can still enjoy yourself. Let me know in the comments if it's working okay for you. But we don't have too much left, so I don't want to interrupt and have it separate. Mostly because I actually upload the Instagram video to YouTube, so here's hoping that the saved version isn't funny. So yes, so brown equals November in my book. So now let's talk about the magic of brown, finally. So you can kind of, when you're working with brown on your own, it might be, because I'm going to mention some magical things here, but after this video, when you're living your life and doing your own thing, you might be looking back and thinking about the color brown, because we were talking about it here today, for whatever reason, and there might be things that I said that really resonated with you that I don't necessarily mention in this part because it was not mentioned in the magical section. You should never for a moment think that that's not legitimate. If there's an association that you make based on something else I said that feels right to you, run with it. I say all the time, your mileage may vary, do whatever works for you. So obviously, like Devin said, the very first thing that brown is generally associated with is grounding. You know, again, you know, it is associated with earth because it's literally the color of dirt or soil, which is a much nicer word in my opinion. But it's, in my opinion, you know, so the other color that's often associated with grounding or earth in particular is green, which I already did a video about also, so you can go back and watch that. But I find that the color brown is a little bit, I say earthier on here, but like darker, like cozier. Like I think green, I think of like springtime and plants and leaves and herbs, but brown is like being in a cave, being surrounded by the earth, the feeling of digging your hands into the soil and feeling the grit in between your fingers. Like that's brown to me. It's a different type of earthiness, a different type of grounding than green. So the other thing that brown is associated with, obviously, because we mentioned earlier, is death. You know, like black, not a little bit softer. You know, so I mentioned earlier, in case everybody missed it, because it was a really cool little tidbit, that in the where is it? When I don't want to get my information wrong. In the 18th and 19th centuries, there was a shade or a pigment of brown that was used by painters called momia, which was actually created from human corpses. So, I mean, like, I don't know how close of an association to death we could possibly get. So, brown. Also, interestingly, when I think of the color, when I think of, Pink Sage says I think coziness is brown. Absolutely. And I don't know, when I think of patchouli, I think of the color brown, too. I don't know why. I just do. And I think because the actual essential oil is sort of brownish, more so than a lot of the other ones. But, cool story about patchouli, if you don't know this, patchouli was often originally used to cover up the scent of dead bodies also. So that might be an association also. And the other thing too, like, this is my little note question I had of yourself. When you, let's say that you're outside this, Rachel says it's brown. Yes, it is. Patchouli is brown. Like, the actual plant you mean is brown? Let me know, because I don't think I've ever actually looked it up to see what it looks like. But, think about walking outside this time of year into your yard or to a park, and the leaves have all fallen, and it's rained really recently. Rachel says vetiver is brown also. That makes sense. And, you know, it's rained recently, so all the leaves on the ground are sort of damp, and you go outside, and you just take a really deep breath, because I think we all know what that smell of, you know, dead fallen leaves smells like, so weird. So my question to you is, what color is that smell? Because I know what color that is to me, and you know, the name of the video is probably going to give it away. But to me, it's brown. That's, to me, that fallen leaf smell is a brown color. Which is, of course, also associated with death. You know, fall, the leaves have fallen off, things are dead and dying. And again, when I talked about the pigment, the idea of the red and black and the green and red making brown. But specifically the black and the orange, which are colors of Samhain. And in that for the purpose of representing the holiday, orange usually represents the idea of the harvest, and black represents death. So you're literally mixing death with the harvest. You know, the ending of things coming to be. Another thing that brown is associated with is frugality, which is a nice way of saying, you know, being thrifty. Which is due to its association, you know, with poverty, you know, historically speaking. Which was, again, because the pigment was so common and easy to come by. So, hey, Serenity Crystal. Oh, see, it showed me your wave and then your join after. I would have, you know, waved at you too. But I'm glad you're here. We're here talking about the magic of the color brown today. I'm actually almost done, but feel free to go back and watch from the beginning. When I'm done, it will get posted into my IGTV channel, and you'll see it in my feed as well. And then the other thing that brown is associated with is simplicity. Again, I talked about the idea of it being associated with natural living and being eco-friendly. Devin here says, provoked thought, as we associate different colors with seasons and change during the year, do you feel like the transition is harder for people because we go from neutral colors essentially white, bright blues and such? It seems like an abrupt color transition. That's an interesting question. I don't think so, because I feel like, I know this is based on my experience as a person that lives in New England. I mean, yeah, is it difficult in a way for some people? Maybe. But here's my take on that. You know, these colors that are often associated with the different seasons are based on what's happening in nature, at least in this particular situation. You know, because when we think of November, we think of brown. I think of brown because the trees are brown, the ground is brown, everything is brown. But what happens when winter hits, everything turns white. That's just the way things kind of naturally transition. So, like, is it shocking sometimes? Yes. I think that, again, as a New England witch, that, you know, the transition from brown to white feels almost natural as a way as we move from the period of death into the new birth. So we're going from the dark of brown to the brightness of life and white and newness. So it feels natural to me. Of course, like cleansing, yeah, absolutely. That was a Devin's comment. I absolutely think that's true. Like cleansing and like to that comment. So I talk about being a New England witch, but I actually also like hate like being cold. And you know, snow is not admittedly my like absolute favorite, but one of the things that my husband's the opposite. You know, he tends to run really, really warm and loves the cold weather. And he loves the snow. He says that and he's correct, you know, that as we've been together and I've kind of, you know, tested out his comments and theories, you know, he says that there's something cleansing and purifying about being outside in a snowstorm. You breathe the air and it just feels so clean. And he's absolutely right, it does. So I think about the idea of maybe baptism is maybe a good way to think about it. You know, in our culture, it's common practice to baptize a child after they're born. So this, you know, and I think about where I am in New England, the snow often doesn't actually come at the winter solstice. It comes a little bit after, at least not to the point where we're having a sort of, like, you know, a blanket of snow on the regular. So we can think about the snow as sort of like the baptism after the birth in a way. So a blessing and a cleansing, absolutely. That was a cool kind of train of thought. So thank you for that comment, Devin. That was really cool. So anyway, that said, that's all I have for brown. Now I'm going to show you real quick some previews of my Yule collection, which is dropping on Monday at 7 o'clock. And I'm excited because I've been hanging on to it for a while. I have a few different things. The first thing I'm going to show you is, I'll show you this. So this is some of my original artwork in a vintage frame. I got this frame actually at a little tag sale at my the Historical Society here in town, here in Windsor. And if you don't know anything about Windsor, cool story. Windsor is actually the site of the first witch trials in Connecticut. So Salem kind of gets all of the credit. But a lot of them happened here, right here in Windsor, Connecticut, where I am, before they ever happened in Massachusetts. So anyway, the Historical Society here, they had a sale recently, and I got this really cute Yule frame. And I put my artwork in it. So you can see here, this is the infant sun child. This darkness here is supposed to, again, represent the void. This is actually an umbilical cord, so it's supposed to represent the womb, but it also has the rays of sun around it. So this piece is going to be available to, it is one of a kind. So if you like it, don't wait. If you check my stories, there is a countdown for my Yule collection drop on Monday. If you click on the countdown, it will give you notification when it runs up, so you can head to the store and grab it before they're gone, because everything is limited quantities because they're handmade. So, Jesus, it's wood, so it's very sturdy, as you're seeing. So go check it out. In case people on Facebook couldn't see, I'm just going to hold it up real quick. So, there's that. Alright, here's another piece of original artwork. This is, I showed this one off last week, but I think we've got all different people this week, so I'm glad that I get to show it off again. This is my Queen of Heaven with Sunchild. This is also the image that's on the front of the Yule Ritual. That's part of this collection, which I'll show off also. But this piece I talked about last week, this piece was heavily inspired by religious iconography, which I absolutely love, except for how awkward they made the babies. They had really ugly man babies. It was weird. So this is a cute baby. So this was the actual, like, the position that she's in was inspired by religious iconography. You can see that they still have the halos because they're still representing their divinity. So this is the Queen of Heaven who is giving birth to the sun child. I only covered up her nipple because I thought that was just a nice thing to do here. And she's got angel wings, again representing her status as a celestial being. Her hair is around her head, sort of like rays of the sun with the actual rays and halo around it. Surrounded by the 7 stars. 7 stars represent wisdom and connection to the divine. And we have her on a crescent moon. The crescent moon, first of all, The Virgin Mary or Mother Mary is often depicted in statuary and artwork, walking on a crescent moon just like this, which represents fertility and abundance, and again, connection to the divine. Again, she's barefoot, also representing, sort of a groundedness and a connection to the earth as well. But she's also on this little foot pillow here, so there's still a sense of, royalty and divinity that kind of goes into it. And then, of course, these snowflakes in the background representing the winter solstice. And they totally reflect the snowflakes that are inside this really cute vintage frame, again, which I think is really beautiful. Biased, of course, but I really love it. Again, this is also one of a kind, so if you love it, make sure you grab it quick. Alright, here's another thing. This is a Yule jingle wand. So you can see this is a piece of pine wood under here that I actually collected from my own yard, which is full of pine. The branch had already fallen, so it wasn't like I harvested it from a live tree. It was on the ground already. And this is faux fur, so no animals were harmed in the creating of this wand either. And there are, so pine, go back to the pine. So pine is associated with immortality, and abundance and prosperity. And this is an acorn on the end. Acorns are associated with divine masculine. In my opinion, the solstices are often really closely associated with the divine masculine more than any of the other holidays. So I really wanted to kind of tap into that whole, hey freedom, talking about my Yule collection. I just wrapped up talking about the magic of the color brown, so feel free to go back and watch from the beginning later if you really want to, which I hope you do. So acorns are symbolic of the divine masculine. Most books that talk about it will tell you that it's considered to be a phallic symbol. But this acorn was also collected right down the street from me, just because there's a giant oak up the road that I collected this from. It was, again, fallen. I didn't pick it off a tree or anything. And then there are these little charms here. You've got the pentacle here, which is the color gold. Gold often represents the god, as do, again, we have the gold colored jingle bells. And then there's actually a little sun charm on here also, which is intended to represent the sun and the sun child. So jingle wands. So in the, oh, thank you, Rachel says it's so cute. In the ritual that's here, now of course you could use this anytime for any Yule ritual, not necessarily just mine, but I kind of made the suggestion in that ritual to use these for sound clearing. It's traditional in a ritual at the beginning to use a besom to sweep for cleansing and purification, but I figured, why not do something super fun and a little bit more seasonal and clear with sound, which is totally a way that people do clearing and purification. And in the ritual, there's a little rhyme, too, that goes to Jingle Bell that you can do to help with the clearing, too, because I think that getting the voice involved is a really important part of, or a really helpful part of magic if you're comfortable doing so, of course. A lot of my rituals are sort of created with the idea that children can be included if they want to be, so it's very, kid-friendly in a way. So, Jingle Wands. There are only 3 of these guys, so if you like that, again, grab them quick. If you're on Instagram, like I said, in my stories there's a countdown. If you click on the countdown, you can set notifications so that you will know when it goes live. Alright, here's another thing. This is my winter womb cauldron candle. Oh, it smells really good. Cinnamon is strong in that. So the cauldron itself has for a long time been a symbol of the womb and of abundance and fertility. Again, so has the upturned crescent moon. Since prehistory, you would see upright, crescent moons like that were used to represent the goddess. And that's actually why cows and bulls, and again in pre-ancient history, were associated with fertility because they had the big horns. So you'll see those in a lot of goddess imagery. Or think like Hathor, who, Hathor? I'm not actually sure how you pronounce her name correctly. But from Egyptian mythology, she's like the mother goddess of the pantheon. She's associated with the cow or the bull. Anyway, the cauldron. So this is actually a nice cast iron, brand new, you can see it still has a sticker on it, cauldron that I poured a candle into, which means that when the candle burns down, you can melt any extra wax out and you can use this again, which is really nice. I hand painted this design on it. The eye represents the self, as the microcosm. I mentioned at the very beginning of the video about the Wheel of the Year. Rachel, I'm not sure if you're talking about the jingle wands or the candles. Let me know. She was asking me how much they are. Just let me know in the comments, because there's a little bit of a lag from your comments to what I'm doing, so I'm not sure if you're talking about the wands or the candle. Just let me know. And that's a really great question, so I'm going to have to pull up my Etsy and look at it myself, because I don't remember. But I have it right here on another tab, so that'll be really easy for me to look up once you let me know what you meant. But I talked about how the whole point of the Wheel of the Year, when we practice and observe the holidays, is about sort of the wands. The wands is sort of about tapping into the energies that are happening on a celestial level to kind of supercharge our own personal cycles of growth and transformation. Oh, you know what? I know why it's not on this page. The jingle wands are, drum roll please, $24 each. However, I don't want to. There is technically, Crystal Magic says, are my products sold solely on Instagram or online? Do I have a local store? I do not have a local store. However, if you go to the link tree that's in my bio, there's a link to my Etsy. All of these things that I'm showing you right now are not going to be available until Friday for the drop, which is going to be at 7 p.m. Like I said, if you go to the countdown and click on it, it will let you know when that is. And yeah, so go check it out. Although if you're really, really interested in any of these things, I would be willing to do it sooner so you don't miss out. If you want to send me a DM, we can maybe get that set up for you if you're really, really antsy, so just let me know. So anyway, holidays. So the eye represents us as the microcosm within the sort of celebration here, inside the womb, so we're also in the womb at like the sun child in this situation here. Let me get this back on my video here so I can see if anybody's talking to me. And then inside here, this is all natural, undyed, yellow beeswax, and it has gold flakes and citrine gemstone chips, and then there's another sun charm here. I don't know how well y'all can make that out. It is infused with my own Winter Sun Ritual Anointing Oil, which is also part of the collection. I just didn't bring it to show you here today, but you can buy it separately also. And this one I'm showing you has a little bit of shimmer to it, but most of them don't, because I messed up when I was making them. But that's okay, because it turns out that it makes a really big mess. So anyway, the idea here is that you've got the womb with the goddess symbols on it, has the sun child inside of it, and when we light the candle in ritual, because this candle is part of my ritual kit that is part of the collection. So again, it's intended to go with the ritual kit, but it is also available separate, so if you just want the candle and not the ritual, you can totally get them by themselves. What was I? Totally, like, my brain just went... the idea of the sun child in the womb. So we have the womb, the goddess symbolism with the candle in it, and when you light it, it's symbolic of the goddess giving birth. That's what I was going to say, and totally let myself get sidetracked. So these little candles are wonderful. Highly recommended, and they smell really, really good. They are the oil, which I don't have but is also in the candle, is citrus, which is associated with the sun, with a lot of warm, cinnamony, clovey scents in it too. Think of mulling spices, which is very, very seasonal and lovely and delicious and beautiful. And the last thing I'll show you is the ritual itself. Then we'll wrap up for today. I'm so glad you guys are still with me. This is I'll show it off because I love to show it off every time. This is my Book of Shadows. It was made by some artists called Bram's Bookworks. I believe the folks that made it they must be older, because they don't seem super internet savvy, because all they have is a website that's kind of on that old and outdated side, but they are still active as far as I know. If you Google Bram's Bookworks, you can probably find them. But the great thing about this is that it is actually a very, very fancy 3-ring binder, so I can take pages in and out of this, so I love it. I literally ogled and wished for one of these books for a decade before I finally took the leap on buying one, and it's one of the best things I think I've ever bought. And my husband has one too, which is actually kind of behind me here. So when this one runs out of space, we're going to use that one. So, here we go. See, Book of Shadows. This is Poison Apple Print Shop, who I love, so if you don't follow them on Instagram yet, please do. Let's see. Ooh, what am I doing? Here we go. I've written a lot of rituals in my time. Here we go. So you can see, here's that same image again. I want to stand up a little bit for Facebook. This is that same image again with the Queen of Heaven. It says Rebirth of the Sun, your ritual. This is parchment style, golden parchment style paper. 24 pound, if I remember correctly. Each page, you can see there's a jingle one, has at least one, not this one, that's a supply list, has at least one or two illustrations on it. Those illustrations were made by me. That is my art. You can see, you recognize this image probably. And the ritual, of course, was written entirely by me as well. Oh, look, see, there's a winter womb candle. We could see originally I wasn't planning on putting the eye on it because I made the drawing before I made the candle, so that was a new addition. I believe it's 12 pages, and it is quite lovely, and it is really pretty to look at, and it is heirloom quality. You can keep it and you can use it for a long time. It's something that you'll want to hang on to. I totally just closed my my clothing in this here. There we go. And it is beautiful and something that you'll want to just hang on to because it's so darn pretty. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I feel like I'm really excited. I was really worried that people weren't going to be super thrilled with Brown, but you guys showed up. You had questions. You interacted with me. It was wonderful. I wish we could do that every week. In fact, if you guys could show up every week, that'd be great. Right? Good. I'm glad you're on the same page as me. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope that you're all being safe. I hope that you're all healthy. I hope that you have wonderful plans to relax and do as little as possible and enjoy the void of the year. I'm doing my best too, but you know, I struggle just like everybody else. But I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend and that you take care. Blessed be.